It is the 1st of July still, 9:45 in the evening. And I'm kind of glad I brought this little device, because although I have my little notebook here that I've been writing on for years, it's not easy to fill pages. My hand just starts to get tired and crampy. But I want to vent, I suppose maybe that's the word, vent with myself. I want to express something. And as is my nature from when I was like about 7 years old, I've always had this desire to capture things from the present and keep them to the future. When I was 7, or maybe a little older, maybe 10, 1976, 10 years old, that's not very old, 10, 11, 12. I was already writing down how I was feeling about things. And I already had the desire to capture the moment, to keep it. To have something to look back on, And it's stayed with me all my life, just the desire. Maybe it's something... The talking to oneself is a pretty healthy thing to do. And for me, the wanting to capture that it's in some sense an artistic endeavor. It's to put it there and eventually put it out online somewhere, so that perhaps one day somebody may find it, and as long as I upload all these things in a specific order, which I'm doing, you can follow it some way, I guess. In one way or another, I've actually, because I've also got an enormous amount of written material, so my life is well documented in one way or another. I know the way this audio goes onto the This Life account, it's just this. There isn't any history as such, it's just recordings from the last couple of years. Anyway, it's the 1st of July, 9:45, and I'm in the Consolata. And I've been reading an old diary from 2010. I brought it with me to give me something to do, and it's proved quite useful. I brought a lot of things. I brought a laptop, I brought DVDs and things, and I haven't really been interested in going near any of them, but I did try to play Bullet today, but I couldn't get any Blu-ray to work on my laptop. But the diary has been interesting to read. It's 12 years old. The astonishing thing is that Flo wrote some pages in it when we went to Marrakesh in 2011, March 2011, I think, and it was a disaster. It was Flo living with a fully fledged alcoholic at that point. But the strange thing about it, I guess, is Flo saying after 2 years in the Connemara that she'd had enough, we needed to do different things, that I was too dependent on her. So I don't know whether she realizes this or not. ask her, maybe she does, that the dynamic that I talked to Martina about has pretty much been there from, if not the very beginning in London, and it's certainly been here since day one in France. And the Connemara has never been good. I don't know if Flo has some idea that it was good for a few years. It wasn't. As far as she's concerned, and as far as what seems to be written down, is that she found it shit from the get-go. You know, after about 2 months she'd had enough. It's fine, I mean. It's just strange to read something and think, well, that's funny, because that's the discussion you're having now. Some things are, thankfully, not there anymore in the relationship. Of course, the alcohol. It makes me very, very, very sad when I hear Flo, or I read Flo writing Eddie is drinking at the bar below, and I'd like to go down, but I'm afraid to go down because I don't know what state he'll be in. And I'm afraid when he comes back because I don't know what state he'll be in, and that really, it breaks my heart that somebody would be afraid, nervous of me. It really does, because I feel that an awful lot about other people, and I know what it's like, and it's terrible to think someone could feel that about me. And Flo did, many times, and it's an alcoholic trait. It's a cliche, but it's one of those things that's true. Like, the person that's married to the alcoholic will say, you never know who's going to come through the door. Is it going to be the good Eddie or the bad Eddie? Well, that's not there anymore, and I don't drink anymore. I'm a bit more mature about things, but it's still surprising that I read these things and I realize, my God, they could be written yesterday. I mean, it's the same. It's the same. And this whole business with my eye, I don't want to be melodramatic about it, obviously. Well, you know, the surgery was tough, and the next day after I had my eye done, it was difficult, painful. But there was something about that whole business that I was in the one building, and I was there with Flo, and I was taken care of. This week, obviously Flo left, I don't know, Monday, Tuesday. God, it's been such a fucking long week, it's unbelievable. Did she really only leave Tuesday? And is today really only Friday? Did she leave just 3 days ago? I mean, it feels like she's been gone a fortnight. It's insane. It feels like she's been gone a fortnight, yeah. It feels like Martina's been here with me for about a month. It's time is the weirdest thing. Anyway, it hasn't been easy. You know, the screwing my head with this plastic mask into the back of the fucking chair, tying my legs together where my knees come together, and I hate my knees being together. And then having the doctor, who's a very nice girl, but having her rubbing this stuff into my eye. And today, this morning, and again, was it really this morning? It feels like yesterday, but I thought she'd never stop touching my eye. Anyway, there's that, and then outside calling the cab and having the phone put down on me and feeling like I'm not able to make people understand my name. And then thinking, like, not anymore, but I couldn't pronounce Consolata, couldn't remember it. And then not really knowing how to say where I was, because even as I lie here now, I don't know the name of the hospital. It sounds like something lasagna. Everything is just, the names are, everything's difficult. The cyclotron, I think they call it. But not being able to say where you are, not being able to get the person to understand your name, and then knowing that the receptionist is going to do it, but she's doing it but doesn't care. There's something there about, I have no charm anymore. When I was young and attractive, let's say I was 22 or 3, people would probably be more helpful because I had more charm. They wouldn't mind spending a few seconds helping me out because I was nice to look at. Now my hair is a mess. I can feel myself aging, and I'm just older. I can't have these conversations with anyone, by the way. Flown or Martina. Because the kind of melancholy and the strangeness I try to describe, which I'm not actually very good at describing. And perhaps nobody, if you have a certain type of sensibility, perhaps you're kind of maybe aware of things, or you feel things that other people are oblivious of. So being on a bus and seeing a bunch of young girls come in and knowing that they're looking at you, and knowing that they're thinking, oh, that old man is looking at me because I'm beautiful, and I feel good about that, but it's an old man. And for someone like me, it just seems like yesterday when I was 25. And I was the object being watched. I was there in all my boy brilliance, with the blonde hair or red hair, with a suit, with fancy clothes, with some eyeliner. And I was the object that everybody was looking at. It's difficult to express sometimes the strangeness of that's gone, you know. If you're a young, attractive 20-something-year-old and something happens to you in a tube, people will be more likely to help. If you're in your late 50s and you look at, and you've got no style and no class, you could probably fall down dead on the street and people will walk over you. And the older I get, which is an interesting topic in itself, the older I get, that situation will get worse. I'm not going to get younger looking. I know when I put these things on audio, if anybody listens back, it may seem that I'm very, very upset by all these things, it's not really that. That's not really the case. It's just it's a subject I'd love to talk deeply to a like-minded philosophical man about, or perhaps someone like Jody. It's interesting. It's melancholic, but it's interesting. Martina and Flo don't get the interest. They don't get the psychology, the philosophy, the aestheticism, the history, the poetry, the Shakespearean sonnets. It's a fascinating subject to talk about. It's deep and it's sad, and maybe at the back of it all there is some kind of rebirth, and it is maybe a way to find something deeper. But the people I speak to don't seem to have ears for it. On top of this, of course, this is where I have my strength, I suppose, in these kind of flights of thought. But the other thing I wanted to talk about was the practicality of things, and this is where I'm finding myself incredibly retarded. And I mean the word in kind of its literal sense. I don't mean it as a joke. I mean retardation, I mean a slowness, undeveloped, or in my case even almost going backward. And with Martina, it's a strange kind of, I can talk about home and talk about my father and Martina and talk about my mother and Justine and Gavin and Catherine, and it's all great. I could talk about all day. I like that. But I don't really know how to be with her and John when I'm out. I don't know what being a tourist is. I don't know how to enjoy what you're supposed to enjoy. Martina took the train with me to Monaco and somewhere sur la mer, where she went with John, and I enjoyed that place, and I enjoyed eating a pizza because I was hungry. But to be honest, I'm mainly thinking of when am I going to get back to this room I'm in. It's really crazy. My main ambition, motivation, is to get back here, to this bed. And today was the same. I don't know how to enjoy myself in this touristy thing. And it must be kind of baffling for Martina and a bit disappointing, and I'm trying to express that to Flo. And Flo says, tell Martina how you feel about things. Tell her you're here and you're stressed and blah, blah, blah. But I said to Flo, what can I do? I can't just meet up with Martina and say, let's just go down the road to the nearest coffee place and stay there for 3 hours and then I'll go home. Because I don't want to do anything. How can I do that? Martina's here. She's here to see me. She's also here to have some time to enjoy herself, to travel, to do the fucking things you do when you're on holiday. And I'm like, I'm doing my best to kind of act out as a good brother who's having a good time, but I'd love to be able to show her things, bring her places. I can't do any of those things. Even with all the equipment and all the IT and all the developments, I talk about going on the little tourist train. I don't know where it is. I don't know where it goes. Today I said goodbye to her at 6 o'clock. She kept kind of saying, are you sure you want to go? And I was like, yeah. Then I left and I managed to get the first tram. And the second tram is very near the stop, because the stop is Jean Medicine. I got off the tram, the red tram, and I couldn't find the fucking blue tram, which is probably across the road. And I walked down the street and I couldn't find the McDonald's, and I couldn't find the blue tram, and I couldn't find any fucking thing. Eventually I asked the woman and she pointed. Luckily nowadays the one thing I don't do is I don't head off madly in a direction. I stop and I go, don't keep walking, because you may be going further away from your objective. So stay where you are. And this woman said, it's just down there around the corner. And I found it. But I walked up and down the street 2 or 3 times, feeling anxious. God, this is a terrible thing to say, but I kind of wonder sometimes if maybe I don't want to say it. I don't want to test anything. You know what I mean. Is there a place for me anymore? I can't explain my situation. I remember chatting to Dan Rather about this fucking a decade ago. And just like all the other numbnuts, they kind of, I'm sorry, Mr. Dan Rather, but it's the most vexing thing when someone says, because I was talking about being on a tube, or I was talking about going to a cafe and not being served, and he said, go up to the bar and demand that you get served. If someone bumps into you on the train, turn around and tell them to fuck off. He was doing what people do when they say, if you're an intense introvert, then just become an extrovert. What could be simpler? I'm like my mother, God help me. I can't. I listen to someone, I take directions, I don't hear what they say. That word that I learned from Jordan Peterson, a person that's keep forgetting it. He's kind of over pleasing to people. He wants to get along. He's, you know. The other day I came in here and I went up to the receptionist, not the one from today. This was a few days. It was yesterday when I went to the hospital. RG2, RG1. Eventually I got back after all the fuss with the taxi, and I went into this receptionist and I said, same problem avec le taxi, and I was smiling and she was smiling, and I said, c'est bon maintenant, eh? And she was kind of, yeah, c'est bon. And then after it was finished, I just said, merci beaucoup. And as I'm walking away, I thought, what the fuck are you saying? Why are you thanking her for? What the fuck are you saying? She doesn't give a holy fuck about you. She doesn't care. What are you thanking her for? God, what's the name they call these people? A person that's always trying to please everybody. It'll come to me. gonna fucking annoy me till it does, but I'm like that, and I don't want to. I don't want to upset Martina, and I don't want to be dramatic. But it's been kind of such a lesson. I really dislike being in crowds. I dislike this kind of. I dislike. I don't dislike being in crowds. I dislike being with people. It's bizarre. It's bizarre. I know for a fact that if I. Let me just check in the battery. If I was able to spend a day on my own in Nice, I would be fine. If I was on my own, I would go in, I would take the bus to Fairbear, I would take the tram, I would maybe take the other tram, I would find places, I'd look at the map, or perhaps I would maybe just go to the museum, and then maybe, knowing where the tram line is and the fact that it's pointing north or south, and I know that Fairbear is 10 stops that way. If you keep walking along those tracks, you'll come to it. It might take you an hour and a half to get there. But if you're listening to music and you want to listen to two brilliant albums like The Killers and David Bowie or whatever, what a great way to do it. You're walking in the sunshine, you're walking with all these people. Keep walking. I'd do it. And I'd wear my mask and I'd go through the tube and it wouldn't bother me. But I would make sure I didn't get lost. I would be tracking everything. I wouldn't be taking any chances. But I'd have a great time here. But I'm not. Because I have to go and meet people. And I don't quite know where they are, and this coming back to catch the bus is a fucking nightmare because I missed it, or felt I missed it on one occasion, and since then I don't want to come back late because Martina is now a long way from the bus stop. And if I miss the bus stop, I'll have to get a taxi. And taxis are not my thing at the moment, so I don't want to have to call a taxi, so everywhere I turn with this, it's stressful. So I do what I did today. I kind of get to the bus stop at about 7, even though there's probably 2 hours left before the last bus. I'm here at 7 and I'd like to be there even earlier. But to be honest, I'd like to get up when I'm finished my treatment, wander as far down the street, take my time getting the bus, take my time getting the tram. Maybe get off the tram and go and walk along the beach. Get back on the tram and go 2 stops down and get up. I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed somewhere that I can't do that. Because I can't. I don't want to tell Martina, I'm going into town, but I'm not going to see you. Because I want to do this and I want to go back. And I don't want to see you the weekend. I just want to do my thing. I can't do that. So tomorrow I'm going to have to stay in her place. Probably. I love Martina. I've enjoyed being with her, and I feel bad for her in that she just happens to be. Maybe I will be able to express this to her. When I was on the train, I came across a good description of it, and I says, Martina, as I get older, I'm getting more and more peculiar. More and more peculiar. Does that happen to a lot of people, I wonder? Because I don't know how to enjoy myself anymore. I'm kind of stressed all the time. I don't enjoy myself going on trains or going touristy places. I would be happy wandering around on my own because I'll be very careful what I do. But in the world I'm in, when I do that, I have to have the music on. The music is like my comforter, you know. And so, and I've kind of existed for so many years in London doing this that I need to be alone. I need to be alone to be at peace in the crowd. And if I'm with people, even you, and it's the same with Flo, I'm useless, you know. I'm not easy to be with. I'm not good to be with. How the fuck do you say that to someone without coming across like a selfish pig? It just sounds like I'm being selfish. I'm walking up and down in my room here, and there's pictures of the room. You can see what it's, you know what it's like. I'm going to take a picture of it now, actually. With my camera, my phone. Just for context, maybe in the future. So I'm taking a picture of my there. There was a point to this. It was to say I like this little room. I feel very comfortable here. I feel very safe here. It is a room like no other. It's true when I think about it. I don't think I've ever been in such a friendly room. It's just got I mean, maybe it would be the same in any hotel that I'd be in. Maybe it's because I've been here a week. And that's why I don't want to stay in Martinez. I don't want to stay anywhere. I want to get back here every night because I'm just very relaxed here. The situation with Flo, like I was saying, it's like in Marrakesh 11 years ago. It's hard to know how much we'd miss each other. If I had a way out, kind of, in terms of a job and let's say I was living in a place like this and I had a job in Nice that I really liked. Of course it's all fucking stupid in France. It's a constant torment, to be honest. But if I had a job and money and who am I kidding? Can't even call a fucking taxi. Let's say I had a room like this somewhere else. I'm daydreaming now, because how the hell am I ever going to get back to London? Let's say it was in the west of Ireland or something, you know. And I'm on my own and I got a job, some friends, and you know, when I think about it, I don't think I can see myself without Flo, in spite of the arguments and the dynamic of her looking after me and me being like a kid and me feeling ashamed, and maybe she feels kind of sad with herself too sometimes because she says things and then she's sorry she says them or whatever. But at the back of it all, there's a real, if nothing else, there's a real history there between us now. There's a big chunk of time that we spent together. And there, in that time, there's been bad times, obviously, elephants in rooms and even some violence, but there's been also times of great joy, I guess, and laughter and spiritual conversations. So maybe there's more strength in the relationship than we both maybe realize. When I think about it, I can't see myself being without her, actually. And I'm not saying that in any sense of because I need her to look after me. No, I mean it in a bigger way. And yet when I see her doing her life with Isabel and running the Connemara and stuff, I don't know at all if she would feel the same about those sentiments, you know. I don't know if Flo had the opportunity and I could move on to something and she was content that I'd be fine. I don't know if she wouldn't be extremely happy to cut all these links, these ties perhaps that bind, perhaps. And maybe she'd be very pleased to start a new life without me. I don't know. I haven't managed to get to the subject with Martina. The safety net subject. I haven't managed to get her to say, you know, if all goes to shit here in France, you are more than welcome to come back with me and John. I think the day somebody says that to me, I'm gonna cry. Because I need to hear it so much. And I'm not hearing it. I'm not hearing it from anyone. And you start to think, you know, you see, people, they don't mind you. You're okay. They don't mind spending time with you. You're okay. But my God, they don't want to live with you. They don't want you to be around too long. And that's my mother and Martina I'm talking about. Now, I may be wrong about Martina. It may just not have crossed her mind, and she may think that this is just a normal situation in a couple, and that she may actually think that the chances of me ever arriving home are nil. She may think it's never going to happen. And she may not have the wherewithal. Why would she? She's not a mind reader. She may not be able to sense in me right now that I could really do with somebody telling me, hey Eddie, if everything goes to pot in France, you're more than welcome to come and stay with me. And when I say for how long or blah blah blah, they say for ever as long as you want. I would be happy to have you stay with me. I'd be happy to have you live with me. It may never happen. Maybe things with Flo will, and I think they are kind of improving in some ways. But Flo is, sometimes she's so tough. I was thinking about a person that's overly agreeable. I knew it'd come to me. Took about an hour. Agreeable. A person that's overly agreeable. And one of the reasons that I'm overly agreeable is not necessarily because I don't want any kind of conflict. It's because also I don't want to hurt the other person's feelings. I don't want to cause them to think badly of me. I guess that's not exactly very positive, but it can also be I don't want them to be in any way upset. So I'll agree to go to Monaco, let's say. I'll agree to stay with Martina tomorrow. I don't really want to, but I'll be overly agreeable because I don't want to upset Martina. And I was saying to Flo, I don't want to upset people's feelings. I don't want to shout at people. Even the receptionist today, when she said she wasn't going to help me with the phone calls next week for the taxis. And I got annoyed and I said, well, I'm having trouble with it. The other girl did that. Can't you do it? And she said, I'll have to do it for everybody, and blah, blah. Even with her, when I left, I went right back. And I think she misunderstood me. I went right back simply to say, it's not really you I'm annoyed with. Don't think I'm annoyed with you. I don't want you to be upset. Because it's not your fault that the taxi people didn't know who I was. So that says a lot about me, in all honesty. Because that's a fact. I did that. I went back to that woman to try and tell her, please don't think I'm picking on you. I'm very upset because of what happened. I'm sorry, I don't mean to. Ironically, when she saw me coming back, she seemed to jump into action. So bizarrely, she probably thought I was coming back to carry on the argument with her and thought, fuck, this guy is not giving up. Because immediately I came back, she started saying, yeah, it's okay, I'm going to take the numbers. I'm going to take the times and call the cab. I just thought about that now, actually. I don't think she understood what I said. I think it was more a case she actually thought that I was the opposite of being, forgot the fucking word again. Overly, fuck it. So she probably didn't realize that, but that says a lot about me. And it's the same with Mammy. Sometimes being overly like that, overly agreeable, is because you do not want the other person to feel bad. And surely that's a good trait. You do not want to upset the other person. You want them to stay. You don't want them to be upset. I genuinely am like that. I don't want people to be upset. And I thought to myself on the train, the one thing about Flo, she doesn't seem to have that problem about upsetting people, if need be. I'm not sure if she'd agree with this, but there have been occasions when she will say things that to an extrovert, thick-skinned person will have no effect, but to an introvert, maybe thin-skinned person could have quite an effect. But Flo will say it anyway. And it's been like that ever since I met her. We joke about it. She's got this kind of knack of just being able to just hit someone in the face with the truth that might not be what they want to hear. And she'll just laugh about it. Well, it doesn't bother her like something like that would bother me. I wish I could think of an example. I can't think of an example. right now. But it's one of those things where she will say afterward, I'm just being honest. I'm just being honest. And sometimes I'll say to her, sometimes it's best not to be honest about certain things. So if someone, some young girl gets her hair done and she says, how do you like my hair? And Flo looks at her and says, your hair is absolutely awful. It doesn't suit you at all. It's crap. It's a slight exaggeration, but not too much exaggerated. She could do something like that. With me, let's say, and it's more lack of awareness, she'd say, you can't, you better learn to use one eye because you won't be able to see out of the other eye. I mean, saying stuff like that is just really not thinking. I think it's saying stuff, but like I said to her, it's the ability to be soothing, to console. That's the ability my mother always had with me when I was a kid. She had a very calming, soothing personality. She'd say the right thing to keep you kind of calm, Whereas Flo is a great believer in, no, you have to, you have to give it straight to people between the eyes, And she'll do that time and time again, and I thought there's a certain lack of empathy in her. There's a certain coldness, there's a certain... She was on a pedestal for me for a long time, but I see areas of her, parts of her personality, just like she sees with me, that really I don't like. I find them negative. So there's lots, obviously, that I like. There's certain things, though, you kind of wonder that in the fullness of time will they just cause irreversible differences to occur. It's hard for me to see things in any form of an objective way with Flo, and there's a problem there, because you can become very, if you're subjective, you can take on board all the criticisms of the other one, and sometimes, I always have a terrible fear of this, you can take on board stuff that you have no right to take on board. You can think the other person is actually doing you a service when they're not doing you a service at all. You can think that they're helping you when they're not. There's that movie There Will Be Blood, when that young priest guy can kind of psychologically torment people and control them by making them believe that they're sinners and they've done wrong when they haven't. And the fact he knows what he's doing, and he knows the psychological torment he's putting them through, makes a character like that one of the most evil you could imagine. Because it's probably akin to abusing a child. You can destroy people for the rest of their life. You can make them hate themselves and think they're bad, and have them trying to repent for sins they don't even have. This is the thing. And in relationships, if one person is domineering over the other one, they can cause the other person to self-destruct themselves. They can cause the other person to kill themselves. They can cause the other person to start believing they have all these faults and that they're a really bad person when they're not. That's a terrible thing. And sometimes the person that's guilty of this might not even know they're doing it. It's just when Martina and I talked to her about this, she goes, well, all couples are like that, that one does more, and you're in France. And she said one thing to me. She says, you seem to have lost all your confidence. And she was kind of surprised that I straight away told Flo I didn't get the bus and had to get a cab. And it's easier for me to just think that life itself has made me this way. It's not really Flo, it's the situation in France. It's the personality changing after the drinking and kind of facing the world. It's some lack of certain practical faculties that I have. And it's also a kind of deep psychological problem, I guess. Anxiety of being outside or with people, or a this being too overly agreeable and not putting myself, not explaining myself. I don't know, I'm losing my own thread of thought. It's been a bit tough this week. There's lots of things that I probably won't really want to think about again. The business in the Arche 1 and Arche 2, and then the whole business with the taxi. Those things kind of wreck me. They may come back. They're not something I'd probably would be putting in the good part of my brain as a good memory. The conversation I had with Martina will probably go there. She told me some stuff about my dad I didn't know. Otherwise, all this stuff. It's funny because I was kind of hoping, I guess, that being on my own here without Flo, I could do these things and it would all be fine, and I'd say to Flo, see, I was able to do all that on my own and everything went fine. Nothing's really gone fine. There's been problems where I couldn't have imagined there would be. Like this morning, I was so convinced after I'd had well, first of all, the treatment itself, I thought, well, it can't be any worse than yesterday. Can't be any worse. She told me it'll be shorter. But it was worse. There was more prodding around in my eye than the last time. And then afterward, I really, really thought, everybody must be aware of me now at the reception place for the taxis. When I call up and say Edward Fitzgerald per taxi, they're all going to know exactly who I am, surely. And there'll be no problem. And it was the same old shit. And then I managed to get through all that, and I come back to the reception here, and I remember what Flo said, don't forget to give the timetable to the receptionist so they can sort out your taxis for the following week. And I thought, well, I'm going to at least do that. That won't be a problem. And that was a fucking problem as well. She didn't want to do it. Now I don't know if she's done it or not. Next week I've got to go to a place which is not the Cinetrol. Psychotron, whatever the fuck it's called. I have to go somewhere else. And I can't help but thinking, what taxi is bringing me there? And who's going to bring me back? This is one thing for sure. I'm going to keep that fucking card of the taxi that brought me back from Martina's place to here. I'm going to keep it in my close to me at all times. And then when you do call a taxi, this is like it's hard for me to even know where I am. are you? Where do I pick you up from? Ferber bus stop. Yeah, which one? The one near the tram, the Fairbear tram. Maybe that's a good idea if that was the case. But suppose I'm in the middle of nowhere and I'm trying to explain and the taxi driver says, fuck this, I don't know what he's talking about, I'm hanging up. I wish I wasn't so defeatist. And even today I left Martina, I couldn't even find the fucking tube station. The metro station, the Jean Medicine. I'm coming to terms with something, and it's not something I could say to Flo, because in all fairness, and I can understand her, she really doesn't want to be looking after me any more than she is at the moment, because it's a lot. She doesn't want to hear all this stuff. I shouldn't tell her. But I did. Maybe I shouldn't have. Maybe I should have just put up with it all and could have said it to her some other time, instead of having her having to deal with it all. I'm 56, but sometimes when I look in the mirror I see a young teenager. Maybe that's not such an optical illusion, maybe something there is retarded. Or maybe there's a lot of people like me. Maybe there's an awful lot of people like me that couldn't function in terms of going out and finding stuff and doing stuff like that either. That couldn't function like Martina, let's say. She walks around and with John and doesn't mind at all about people, what they think, and doesn't feel nervous of what John might do, or will he have a bad day or whatever. I know she spent her whole life with him, and she can go and get on trains and go, but you know, the funny thing about that, which again is a philosophical thing, is like, I went with her, we went on the train. Now I know the first place was very sentimental to her. She was there with John, and I think that's a wonderful idea. I can really relate to that. You want to go to the same spot and have a pizza. I love that idea, and I felt a real sense of calm there. And I enjoyed that. But then going to Monaco and walking around with all these horses at the port, and I'm thinking, who enjoys this? Who in their right mind enjoys getting off a packed fucking train and walking on a packed street in 35 degrees heat, and then turning around and walking all the fucking way back to a packed train? And even if you could stop and have a coffee in a packed cafe, or you go to a restaurant and you have the stress of being abused by the fucking person there, you know, who is it? Just me? I mean, who enjoys these things? Who enjoys getting on those trams and walking around in 20,000 people in Nice without any fucking purpose? I don't understand. I just don't understand it. There's some material there for a stand-up comic. If any stand-up comic gets to this kind of a beat, this kind of a vibe, there's a lot of material there. Why do people do it? How do they? Because I don't, and I'm looking at people and they don't fucking seem to be enjoying it either. Martina just looks tired walking around half the time. She goes around from place to place and she has a pizza and he has chips. Is it just out of habit that we do these things? Is it because somewhere or other in our childhood and in our growing lives and daily lives we're told that this is the way to enjoy yourself? You go to Nice, you walk around. You walk up the hill and you watch something. You walk down the hill and you watch something else. The only thing I find of any sense is a museum or an art gallery where you can really watch something amazing. Or go and walk the streets and look at the architecture, that's fine, but even that is kind of... I mean, that's... I'm going to go see Martina tomorrow. She wants to go to Antibes. Everything in France is beautiful. Everything in Horizon and Aix. I guess it's the way you feel inside, maybe. If you feel inside like me, then nothing's beautiful. Everything is a bit anxious. But these questions... about this, I think of my brother John and I realize, my God, I'm really like, we're alike, you know. If I could turn back time, I really wonder, and let's forget about the alcoholic bit, but if I had managed to get myself a small flat somewhere, and let's say I had a car, was living in Carlow or somewhere, and had a job, and a routine and some friends and stuff, would I have needed anything more? Would I have been like John and be quite happy with the day-to-day routine? Maybe not even have a car, maybe never leave Ireland, maybe never ever want to leave Ireland, never have the yearning to leave Ireland, just be happy in my little space, going backward and forward to work, and maybe having some holidays, something or other. Is it because, like, the guy in the drama centre, the director of The Winter's Tale, said to me one time, he said, you know, you're just an Irishman who's a long, long way off the trail, kind of. An Irishman who's kind of just got lost and he's gone a long way off the road. Is that what I am? And because I don't know how to enjoy myself on holiday and stuff, and I don't really have any ideas for what to do. And the scary thing, of course, is this all linked to my present condition? Am I destructing myself with these thoughts? I mean, I'm hoping there's, you know, you get through them and there's a redemption at the end and you go back to Eckhart Tolle and you live the moment, and I have done pretty well with the moment. I really have. And I'm finding this ranting soothing, and I also find a lot of the stuff I'm saying interesting. I'm kind of able to be objective enough with myself to find it kind of interesting. You know, well, this Eddie Fitzgerald guy, he's a complex character. It's an interesting story. What's he going to do? I can sometimes be like that. I can a little bit third party looking at myself, which by all accounts is a good thing. But what the hell? You know, what do you do if you're married to a guy? What do you do with him if he doesn't really know what to do on holidays? If he realizes himself for the first time, perhaps, that he doesn't really want to go anywhere because it's kind of all the same, whether San Francisco or New York or Florence, unless it's a short trip and there's a fucking museum or an art gallery at the end of it, something specific to see. God bless Dali, and God bless the trip we did. It was one of those trips that will forever stay in my mind, because it was wonderful. And the only thing about Dublin that was any good was seeing those paintings by, I can't remember the man's name, his brother is a famous writer. Can't remember, but the art galleries in Ireland, that was wonderful. It's the only thing worth seeing, the only thing worth doing on a holiday. For me, it's the only thing worth doing. Most places you go to have museums, though. Paris has the biggest art gallery in the world. Florence is apparently filled with things. That's something to think about. I'm pretty sure the place here would be good as well. Otherwise, walking around, shit, Jesus. Let's go to the old town, let's go to the new town, let's go to the church. Seeing the churches is quite relaxing. But then with John, and it's been fine, but it's a bit of a strain. I'm not used to that. I'm not used to someone so free, jumping around, waving his arms. It's actually amazing how nobody minds. Well, how could they? I just realized my feet are dirty from walking on the floor. Anyway, maybe I should put this conversation to bed. It's been talking for an hour. Do I feel any better? I don't know. It feels kind of like I'm trying to solve a puzzle that is difficult to solve. Trying to find some enduring affirmation about the whole experience here that will lift me up, you know. Kind of like to end this conversation by saying, but I'm stronger now because of all this. And it's gonna make me stronger in the future when I do trips again, or I go to Ireland or whatever, or I'm with Flo and I have to call a taxi. I want to be able to say something very affirmative about the whole business, or I'll be less stressed. I'll be more in the moment. I won't be fearful because you kind of see your mortality close up like that, and someone is saying, people that get this eye thing at 50-50 if they don't develop something else, and you think, Jesus, we can never be sure of the time we have or what's coming next. So what's the point in worrying? What's the point in standing in your own way, blah, blah, blah. I'd like something affirmative, but it has to be, of course, not words, it has to be a feeling, it has to be an experienced something. It can't just be words. And to be honest, at the moment, although I'm looking for that uplift, almost looking for the reward after the tribulations, You're kind of thinking, well, that's the bad couple of beats, and now, by God, you're gonna go into the good times, you know, this is a really big down and now we're hitting the up. It's going to be magical, but I can't really find any affirmations. I can't find anything. I feel a bit deeper, I guess. I feel a little bit more knowledgeable about myself. But that knowledge is the knowledge that I have no idea what to do on holidays, and I don't really know how to be with certain people or maybe anybody anymore. So it's a depth that can kind of raise questions as well, or cause some kind of trouble as well. You know, it's a strange thing to realization that, you know, I'm fine on holidays as long as I've got my music plugged into my head and I can know where I'm coming from and don't get lost in stuff, and I can just kind of walk in a straight line and just listen to music for 2 hours if I feel like it, and then walk home. That's what I want to do on holiday. What about all the people you're going to be with? I have no idea. I don't want to mix with them. Perhaps, ironically, there's one thing before I go I'll say. If that really is the case, and I like being on my own on holidays, and it might turn out that I end up traveling all over the place on my own, and it might mean that I may like traveling, but not with other people, just on my own, so that I can do everything my own way. Perhaps. Right now it would seem very doubtful that I'll want to do much traveling in the next couple of months. Anyway, there we go. The longest month just finished, June. And it really was long. It seemed endless. And right now, it's 11 o'clock. It's 11 o'clock. So we're still the 1st of July. I'm not complaining about the time, by the way. When you get into your late 50s, you're not going to complain about time slowing down. It's fine. And again, I'm not saying it in any kind of a complaining sense. I'm saying it with a sense of wonder, almost. The fact that at the moment, every day is lasting the equivalent of 3 normal days back in Orizon in the Connemara. So it's really strange. But it's good. I don't mind that. Anyway, whoever's listening, and if it's you, Eddie, which may very well be in the distant future. This is on my Philips machine, and I don't even know when I'm going to upload this to the account. It may well be months or years before it gets uploaded. But if you're listening to it in the future, and I am going to just talk about the future as if there is nothing has happened this week that's going to change the way I talk about the future. Because I'm not going to keep adding in kind of inverted commas, if there is a future. I'm not doing that. I'm going to just carry on as normal. So in the future, when you're listening to that, I hope the crypto market has picked up. I hope that with the coming of your 60s and mid-60s, that something transformed in you to give you some peace. And I hope that the powers that be and the divinities that there are and the gods will help kind of in your situation and make everybody happy. And that's me being, again, even in my ambitions, I'm, what's the fucking word? I'm overly, oh God, can't think of the word. Appealing, dreadful. The word keeps disappearing from me. But hopefully in the future, Flo will be happy. She'll find what she's looking for, and her life will become one of great peace and serenity. My sister Martina, her life will become one of great peace and serenity. My mother, God bless her, and all my family and brothers and sisters, and Flo's brothers and sisters, all of them, even Alex, everyone, God bless them all. Hopefully in the future their lives will have gone on to become peaceful and serene, and if I'm not with Flo anymore, hopefully we'll be friends. We'll keep in touch. See, when I say something like that, there's a little bit of my heart says, I don't want to lose Flo at all like that. I want to be with her. So there's probably something deep in some spiritual sense. That loves Flo a lot. Adios for now.